homeowners insurance, and I'm guilty of this too. You get it, you sign it, you pay it, you get the document with the 10 pages, you fold it up and you put it in a folder somewhere and you never really look at it again, right? It's really not until you actually need it where things get really dicey because you realize that you've been underinsured this entire time. We explore life at the intersection of money. I'm Julian.
And I'm Kirsten. And today we're talking about homeowners insurance. But first, I want to give a shout out to Ace and Coco, who left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts that said, "Great podcast. I enjoy listening to you both. All your episodes are great conversation starters between my wife and I."
I like that. Ace and Coco.
I love that.
That sounds like a TV show.
Sound like a podcast.
It does sound like the Ace and Coco show. I like that.
Well, hopefully this episode matches that bar because this is a topic that we realized that we hadn't even had an in-depth conversation about. So let's get into it. We're talking about homeowners insurance. And the reason why is because we recently collaborated with Consumer Reports on a homeowners insurance campaign or segment that they were doing. And I personally walked away learning more about homeowners insurance, but also about Consumer Reports to the point where I knew we had to do an episode about it. So this is going to be a little shorter than normal because I want y'all to go to their site and see the work that we did. I want to start with what makes Consumer Reports different because this was kind of new to me. Like I had heard about Consumer Reports. Obviously, it's like one of those institutions like AAA or AARP that you keep in the back of your mind.
I've relied on Consumer Reports before. We have, I'm pretty sure, even used Consumer Reports articles and research and reviews and presentations. And it's a mainstay, brand. It's something that like exudes authority and expertise and trust, right? Yes. It's one of those brands that you just know, like, well, you find it within the sort of sphere of the Consumer Reports umbrella, and all right, wherever you are, is like the good part of the internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're basically a nonprofit, independent organization that accepts no advertising.
Yeah.
And that is super important at a time where most media, whether you're talking about a traditional media outlet or even like an influencer or a review site, they're funded by the very companies that they're reviewing. Mm-hmm. And so while a lot of them will say that there's no bias, there's no, we're not going to be paid to say things. And sometimes that's true. But when that is your main business model, you can't just negatively talk about all of the products or services that you're reviewing. You certainly can't take a stance against an industry where you've noticed a trend or a pattern. And Consumer Reports does that. Like they don't just publish reviews. They also advocate for consumer protection laws and investigate predatory practices in a bunch of different industries. In fact, this week they were telling us via email that they had recently published something about lead being in protein powder or protein supplements.
Yeah, the moment that news broke, I want to say they sent us a note because they were slated to publish the content that we had collaborated on, but they pumped the brakes on that because there was something that was a little bit more pressing. And it just, to your point, like really showed the value of the work that they do. And I don't know that I'm exaggerating when I say like there's a combination of like God's work and government's work that they are actually doing because like they are truly out here saying, hey, do these things actually do what they say they're supposed to do, right? And they're not, to your point, just offering an opinion. It is research-based. It is tested. It is gone through a long, long process of real testing to make sure that whether it's a product or a service, that it is doing what it says it does. And then it's ranked and you can compare it. Like it is really, really valuable work that they do. And so it was like a real pleasure to collaborate with them.
Especially when it comes to insurance, because insurance marketing, like, can we just take a side street real quick? When you think about insurance marketing, one, their characters are probably more well known than the characters on cereal boxes at this point.
Oh, for sure.
Like, ask your kid who the tiger is on the Frosted Flakes box, but ask him who Flo is from Progressive or the Geico Gecko or Jake from State Farm.
The Limu Emu.
Yeah.
Or The guy, that's the last one, you know what? And I'm willing to bet, like, maybe it's just me or maybe they don't do that many commercials, but it's not chaos. What's the word? Mayhem.
Yeah.
Mayhem, right? These are guys, characters that are placed in a position to be beloved, right? And it goes beyond commercials. And I want to say we've talked about this several times before, but like you start thinking about, especially in this time of year where every major sport is live, right? You start to see how they sort of inch into like they're on the field and it's the halftime report and it's the
on the goal,
such and such
on the
brought
uniforms.
to you by, or the State Farm play of the day, or little things like that. So it is woven into the fabric of our culture, and it is doing that for a reason, right? It is to cozy you up and to get you to just have a sense of familiarity and trust with these brands, and to basically just ignore the details. It's like, you know what, I rock with Jake.
Right.
Jake wouldn't do that to me. So
Jake wouldn't do that to me.
Jake looked like one of my boys. I went to school with Jake. So he's cool. I'm gonna roll with State Farm. And that's it. You're not gonna look at the details. You're just gonna be like, yeah, like, I like red. And he looks cool. So
they have an app. It comes up first on Google. Like these campaigns are designed to oversimplify and basically soothe any anxiety you might have about something bad happening in your life, whether it's that you're in good hands with Allstate, or to your point, Jake from State Farm being literally everywhere, including courtside at a WNBA game. There's this familiarity that's there. And Consumer Reports is one of the very few institutions that is actually reviewing these insurance companies based on customer satisfaction, important, claim denial rates, even more important, and the fine print in your policies. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that, one, y'all knew that that's what they do, and two, that y'all knew that we did a little something with them to answer some questions that a few people had.
Yeah, you know what I really, really enjoyed, and this is personal just for me, like aside from what I learned, was just talking to an expert.
Yes.
Right? Like talking to someone who has done the research on a niche subject, several subjects, right? So we collaborated with Consumer Reports, the investigative reporter that we were specifically speaking with. Her name was Lisa Gill, and she's an expert in several fields, right? But this was her thing. She knew everything about it. And so when you meet somebody like that and you're talking to them about a particular subject, you always walk away learning something like, wow, I did not know that. And what was really interesting, I don't know if this will end up making the final cut, is that I was able to share an experience with her that she never even heard of. And I was like, wait a second, like that's weird, because that's just my experience. And so as a result, that's what shaped my understanding of homeowners insurance. And so all of that led to what I thought was a really, really great conversation. But just to go down the list, right? Like if you think about some of the things, like just a couple of things off the top of my head, like one, being able to negotiate your homeowner's insurance premium was not something that I thought was even possible. I always thought that the quote was the quote and it is what it is. And I knew that there were some levers that you could pull, but I did not know that you could actually negotiate it. I did not know that little things like the dog breed that you have in your home could actually impact your homeowner's insurance quote, or some other weird thing that has absolutely nothing to do with what you're doing. Hey, you want to get a trampoline in your house, right? Like I think about those things from a standpoint of a business, right? If you're a business owner and you happen to have kids there and you're doing something that could be risky, in my mind, those are the things that registered as, yeah, you want to make sure you are really, really covered. But the thought had never crossed my mind that these are also things that could impact what you are paying in your home. And I think part of the reason why the subject is so confusing for a lot of people is because homeowners insurance is one of those types of insurance that is just ignored a little bit. Like we are less familiar with it, not just because we don't use it, but there's not like a physical aspect to it. Like if you think about your health insurance, like you have your health insurance card in your wallet or in your purse.
And you're going to the doctor.
You go to the doctor maybe a couple of times a year, hopefully a couple of times a year. You have a general idea of how much you pay because you're using that insurance that much more frequently. You may have your car insurance in your glove box or something like that, and you have it and you're familiar with it. But homeowners insurance, I would say, and I'm guilty of this too, you get it, you sign it, you pay it, you get the document with the 10 pages, you fold it up and you put it in a folder somewhere and you never really look at it again, true. Right? And it's like, wow, it's really not until you actually need it to where things get really dicey because you realize that you've been underinsured or maybe in some cases overinsured this entire time. And so that's part of the reason why we really wanted to make sure that we took advantage of this opportunity to collaborate with Consumer Reports. And as you said, really hope folks give a listen to that conversation because it was a really good one.
Yeah, you're right. Because in the insurance space, you're buying something intangible. You're basically buying the promise that someone will help you pay for something if it happens. Mm-hmm. And homeowners insurance is one of those things that is even more intangible than some of the other types of insurance. And honestly, the system benefits from that confusion. And that's one of the things that we talked to Lisa about. We started the conversation by just talking about why it was so confusing. And she was able to give several reasons. One, it varies from state to state. And like you said, you're just not using it as much as some of the other insurance, which leads to under engagement. She also talked about how the rates are kind of opaque and not really transparent. And so the rates can be influenced by things like weather trends, proximity to fire stations, crime rates, dog breeds, like you mentioned, even HOA rules. And the algorithms that determine your risk or that risk, the risk of your home encountering any sort of issue, aren't transparent. So that means that your rate can go up without any clear explanation. And that's exactly what's been happening. We started by talking about how most people are seeing double-digit rate increases in their homeowners insurance and how the system is penalizing people for things that are outside of their control.
To that point, we reached out to people, we asked questions, we solicited. That's really kind of how this whole thing started. Like they reached out to us, they meaning Consumer Reports, and they said, hey, we're going to ask our people what questions they have. Can you ask your people what questions they have? And that was one of the first questions people had was like, why is my rate going up? And it goes back to what I was saying before, where people kind of look at all insurance products kind of the same. And so they are wondering, well, if I haven't filed a claim, right? Because generally speaking, it's like I ran a red light, I got into an accident, I expect my insurance to go up. I am now sick and I have done something wrong or whatever it is, right? Like, and now my insurance is going up. When it comes to homeowners insurance, people are wondering like, wait a second, I haven't done anything. Like I forgot I even had it. You know what I mean? Why am I all of a sudden being charged a higher premium? And it just really feels like there's nothing I can do about it. And so that was part of the conversation that we had. And I do think that, if I were to ask 100 people, I'm willing to bet if they were to say, like, what are some of the things that might happen or finicky situations around homeowners insurance that would let you know that you really need to take a look at it? I feel like flood insurance is one of those things that would come up. And the reason for that is, at least for me, I know several people who have fallen into situations where they feel like they have flood insurance, but then they learn exactly how flood insurance or how a flood is defined.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is
not
it a
just
flood
water
that came from the water outside of your home, or is this a flood that started from a busted pipe inside your home? And it's little things like that. And it was like, well, look, a flood is a flood. My basement is flooded. I don't care where the water came from. Did it come from a pipe inside the home? Did it come from a pipe outside the home? Did it come from a pipe connected to a home in a townhome situation? Like all of those little things are part of the issue and the opacity and the confusion. And so that's why we really are grateful that we had this conversation with Consumer Reports, because again, we learned a lot. And like I said, I know a lot of other people are going to learn a lot from that conversation too.
So one of the big lessons from Lisa was to check your mail.
Check your mail.
Check your mail. Don't assume that a thin envelope from your homeowner's insurer is just like a payment confirmation. Mm-hmm. That thin envelope could be that they're canceling your policy or that you're dropping you. She told some horror stories about people who thought they had home insurance, but never received the cancellation. And the insurance company is like, yes, you did. It was mailed to you. You just didn't open it. And so big takeaway was to check your mail. Another thing that I learned was that homeowners insurance is not just about your stuff. We talked a little bit about liability protection, which is one of the most overlooked parts of a homeowner's policy, but it can be the most financially important. What liability protection does is it protects things that happen outside of your home. So outside and beyond the physical structure of your home. So in other words, you're not just protected if someone gets hurt inside of your home. You're protected if you or a family member causes injury or damage somewhere else. Some examples of this might be if your dog bites someone while you're out for a walk. And this literally happened to a friend of ours. She was bitten by a dog, not her dog. But your homeowner's liability insurance could cover part of those medical costs or legal fees. If your kid breaks a neighbor's window because they were playing baseball outside, your policy might help cover that. If someone trips on a crack in your sidewalk or slips on your icy driveway because you don't own a snow shovel and whatever the reason, you ordered DoorDash, I don't know. But that could trigger your liability protection, even if it's not technically inside your house or technically your fault per se.
Yeah. It's really, really fascinating how, again, things that maybe happening on your property or maybe happening in your neighborhood or in your community or in your city are the things that could affect your coverage, your premiums, and essentially how much you are paying or overpaying. You mentioned something about the dog, and I couldn't help but to think about Tyrese. Because if you live in the Atlanta area, a couple of weeks ago, we were recording this as of middle of October 2025. And when he ended up being arrested because his dog, if I'm not mistaken, killed another dog in the area. Didn't hear about this?
No.
Yeah. So his dog ended up escaping or something like that. And it ended up attacking and killing another dog in the neighborhood. Right. And so now, again, you've got the loss of a dog, and obviously that's horrific. Aside from that, you now have basically an entire area that will likely be impacted because there's a dog that has a habit or a tendency or whatever it is. And I want to say he was protecting the dog, like he didn't turn the dog in, which is why he got arrested. And so it's just things that I don't own a pet. And so I don't think about these things, but if you do, you might also not be thinking about these things. But it's not just your pet and the issues that you have with your pet and your ability to control it. It's the area that you're in. And so if there's a problematic pet in the area, something that that could be annoying or frustrating to deal with, but this also could be a literal impact to how much you're paying to cover your liability in the event that something happens in or around your home. Now, even if we're not talking about dogs or pets, there's also just the realities of climate change. And, there's so much confusion around climate change, unfortunately. There are those of us who certainly understand that it is real. And then there are others who believe that it's just hyperbole and that it is companies basically trying to make a bunch of money. Either way, that confusion is leading to a lot of people to be underinsured. And so when you think about all of the wildfires that we're seeing in California and all of the weather that we're seeing in basically, what do they call it? Hurricane Alley, right? The Southeast, and even going all the way up into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. All of these things are having an impact on homes and property values and, replacement costs and all of those things. And we got into just about all of those things in that conversation. So even something as simple as an umbrella policy, which I didn't really know about until I was a real estate investor a couple of years ago. We're not real estate investors anymore, but I remember learning about that and realizing wow, that's super helpful, right? Because you own property, you have to have that property insured in case something happens, in case things break down, in case there's an incident on your property. But I remember learning about umbrella policies, which are basically, policies that live or hover above all. It's like a policy ribbon wrapped around all of the other policies that you have, where you can just have an extra $1, $5, however much you want, however much you're willing to pay for, just in case something crazy happened. That's all it's there for. It's not the primary insurance that you're going to tap into. It's basically once your other coverage is basically tapped out, you can then kind of tap in to this sort of surrounding coverage. And so little things like that I think are really, really important, not just for property owners, but for people who have valuable properties, for people who have assets that they want to make sure that they're protecting. This certainly needs to be something that you're either looking at. So it's not just the actual homeowners insurance policy. It could be policies above that to make sure that you and your family, your business or whatever are well protected.
So in the show notes, I'm going to link to the article that I almost called them CR because we're close like that. Consumer Reports. I'm going to link to the list that Consumer Reports put together that includes all of the top insurers, even companies that aren't widely known to consumers, because I think that's a really important part.
Tip number one.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I knew for sure leading into this, it was look, if they got a commercial,
listen,
if they got money to give to millionaires to promote something, the same is true for brokerage companies. And, that to me is a red flag. It's it's cool, nice commercial, but I'm not paying Sam Jackson. I'm not here to make sure that Flo gets you're not using my money. to pay them.
Yes. They are ranking companies, even if you don't know them, that are maybe smaller, but scored really high on claim satisfaction and renewal transparency. Because like we said at the top of the episode, what you are buying is a promise to pay when something happens. And so there is a built-in trust that has to happen. And Consumer Reports is trying to make sure that that promise is upheld for consumers. So what you should do this week is, one, click the link and consider getting a Consumer Reports membership. If not, then just read through your own policy and actually read it, even if it's just the declarations page, to make sure that you have some of the coverages that you are anticipating or that you might expect. I know none of us can predict the future, but we can certainly think about things that are likely to happen based on what we have going on in our neighborhoods and in our homes. And then remember that you don't have to wait until your renewal period to compare prices or to switch providers. This isn't like health insurance with open enrollment, which we'll be talking about soon. But you can shop around, and shopping around is what's going to reveal all of those hidden fees. It's going to help you identify what better customer service might look like. It's going to highlight any coverage gaps. And then again, Consumer Reports is providing that ranking and consumer reviews, which are super important, especially now, especially with everything that we got going on, from companies canceling policies to unexpected climate to post-insurance rate hikes because of tariffs or whatever excuse they're going to give you. And so when you insure your home, you're not just protecting your things, you're protecting your peace. And that starts with understanding what your insurance is actually promising.
Yeah. And again, last shout out to Consumer Reports, man, for doing God's work and making sure that the American people have a resource, a trusted resource that they can use to improve their purchasing decisions. There are just far too many people. I remember going on a deep rant about this years ago, like how we flippantly spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on appliances and on policies for insurance or cars or whatever it is. And we don't actually do enough research to determine whether or not this has a good reputation or a bad reputation. Like, we just casually have a general kind of optimistic and hopeful point of view. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of mistakes can be prevented if you just do a little bit more research. And the good news is Consumer Reports does a lot of that research for you. And so it's a great tool to have to help sharpen any number of, even if we're talking about childhood toys or whatever it is, that's why they're there. We tested these toys. Here's what we found. Right? It does work, it does not work, or it does not actually perform or meet the claim that it says it has. And so that's why they're there. And that's part of the reason why we were so glad to be a part of it. So this is one of what I hope maybe, they're kind of flirting. I got my fingers crossed. We'll see what a long-term collaboration or partnership looks like. But yeah, this is one of what I hope will be many conversations. And I hope, if nothing else, we are introducing people to a resource that they can use and to add to their financial toolkit.
In addition to us, put them behind us in the playlist.
Well, remember how you found them.
Remember how you found them. That's it.
Just like when you remember who introduced you to somebody that became your favorite musician.
Yeah.
Give credit where it's due. So.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rich and Regular podcast. If you like what you heard, let us know by leaving a 5-star rating and review, or drop a comment below to keep the conversation going. We will see y'all next week. If you like videos like this and want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications.